So good morning, everyone. Welcome. We'll start with the opening sutra. And unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect. Rarely met.
With even in 100,000 million kalpas, having it to see and listen to, remember and accept.
I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teaching. And I'll just read a brief statement about dana before introducing our speaker here. In Buddhism, when practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of dana paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment or expectation when opportunities arise. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. Daigu has offered to speak with us this morning, kind of last minute, and I'll read a brief introduction here. Randal Daigu Pride is an artist, poet, and lay Buddhist teacher in Arden, North Carolina. In 1998, he received the Bodhisattva precepts from Rev.Teijo Munnich at Zen Center of Asheville's Jukai ceremony. In 2015, he received the lay teacher's okesa from Reverend Munnich in the Zaike Tokudo ceremony at Great Tree Zen Women's Temple. He co-facilitates at the Zen Center of Asheville for zazen instruction and Buddhist studies. He has 5 wonderful children and 9 incredible grandchildren in Austin, Texas, Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm going to mispronounce this, Coquitlam, Canada. Please correct that if you can. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Yeah, I wanted to say too, thank you very much. Daigu has been he practiced at the Zen Center of Asheville almost from the beginning, moving up here from Texas. And he also, if you've seen the flyers that go out, I call them flyers, the things that we post on Facebook and send out on our email and on Instagram. He makes those. He's a graphic artist and does it on his computer. And so he went to make one for this week. And he wrote to me and said, I can't find who's speaking on the schedule. And I looked at the schedule and I had not scheduled anyone to speak for today. So I said, hey, Daigu, could you speak? So I got him at the last moment and I want to express my gratitude. Thank you for coming.
Sure. Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Your glasses are really glaring though.
Well, these are my reading glasses, and since I'm reading, I need them on. Sorry about that. And Coquitlam, you pretty much got that right, Genjo. It's where my oldest daughter lives with her family. Since this was kind of last minute, I threw out a title between like and dislike. And then I started scratching my head how to approach that topic. And then I remembered this famous old poem, but at first I'm going to read a poem I wrote about the poem that's a little more lighthearted than the actual poem. And this poem is called Preferences. A Buddhist sage said, "The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. Easy to say, hard to do. I'll always prefer the scent of a rose to that of a skunk, to be healthy, not sick, solvent, not broke, loved, not ignored. All preferences I'd be hard-pressed to relinquish. Of course, if my world only smelled of roses, I'd become bored of roses." So the poem The Zen poem I'm going to read is been called the first Zen poem. It's from the Singshan, the third ancestor of Zen, back in the 6th century era. And the poem is Shinshin Ming, which has been translated as verses of the faith mind. Of course, we're talking about one mind and not dualistic mind. And that is played with in this whole poem, the two truths, relative and absolute. So I'll kick it off here. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. When the deep meaning of things is not understood, the mind's essential peace is disturbed to no avail. The way is perfect like vast space, where nothing is lacking and nothing in excess. Indeed, it is due to our choosing to accept or reject that we do not see the true nature of things. Live neither in the entanglements of outer things, nor in the inner feelings of emptiness. Be serene in the oneness of things, and such erroneous views will disappear by themselves. When you try to stop activity by passivity, your very effort fills you with activity. As long as you remain in one extreme or the other, you will never know oneness. Those who do not live in the single way fail in both activity and passivity, assertion and denial. To deny the reality of things is to miss their reality. To assert the emptiness of things is to miss their reality. The more you talk and think about it, the further astray you wander from the truth. Stop talking and thinking, and there is nothing you will not be able to know. To return to the root is to find meaning, but to pursue appearances is to miss the source. At the moment of inner enlightenment, there is a going beyond appearance and emptiness. The changes that appear to occur in the empty world we call real only because of our ignorance. Do not search for the truth, only cease to cherish opinions. Do not remain in the dualistic state. Avoid such pursuits carefully. If there is even a trace of this or that, of right and wrong, the mind essence will be lost in confusion. Although all dualities come from the one, do not be attached even to this one. When the mind exists undisturbed in the way, nothing in the world can offend. And when a thing can no longer offend, it ceases to exist in the old way. When no discriminating thoughts arise, the old mind ceases to exist. When thought objects vanish, the thinking subject vanishes, as when the mind vanishes, objects vanish. Things are objects because of the subject. The mind is such because of things. Understand the relativity of these two and the basic reality, the unity of emptiness. In this emptiness, the two are indistinguishable, and each contains in itself the whole world. If you do not discriminate between coarse and fine, you will not be tempted to prejudice and opinion. To live in the great way is neither easy nor difficult. But those with limited views are fearful and irresolute. The faster they hurry, the slower they go. And clinging cannot be limited. Even to be attached to the idea of enlightenment is to go astray. Just let things be in their own way, and there will be neither coming nor going. Obey the nature of things, your own nature. and you will walk freely and undisturbed. When the thought is in bondage, the truth is hidden, for everything is murky and unclear. And the burdensome practice of judging brings annoyance and weariness. What benefit can be derived from distinctions and separations? If you wish to move in the one way, do not dislike even the world of senses and ideas. Indeed, to accept them fully is identical with enlightenment. The wise strive to know goals, but the foolish fetter themselves. There is one Dharma, not many. Distinctions arise from the clinging needs of the ignorant. To seek mind, big mind, with the discriminating mind is the greatest of all mistakes. Rest and unrest derive from illusion. With enlightenment, there is no liking and disliking. All dualities come from ignorant inference. They are like dreams or flowers in the air. It is foolish to try and grasp them. Gain and loss, right and wrong, such thoughts must finally be abolished. If the eye never sleeps, all dreams will naturally cease. If the mind makes no discriminations, the 10,000 things are as they are, of single essence. To understand the mystery of this one essence is to be released from all entanglements. When all things are seen equally, the timeless self-essence is reached. No comparisons or analogies are possible in this causeless, relationless state. Consider movement stationary and the stationary in motion. Both movement and rest disappear. When such dualities cease to exist, oneness itself cannot exist. To this ultimate finality, no law or description applies. For the unified mind is in accord with the way, all self-centered striving ceases. Doubts and irresolutions vanish, and life and true faith is possible. With a single stroke, we are freed from bondage. Nothing clings to us, and we hold to nothing. All is empty, clear, self-illuminating, with no exertion of the mind's power. Here, thought, feeling, knowledge, and imagination are of no value. In this world of suchness, there is neither self nor other than self. To come directly into harmony with this reality, just say when doubt arises, not to. In this not to, nothing is separate. Nothing is excluded. No matter when or where, enlightenment means entering this truth. And this truth is beyond extension or diminution in time and space. In it, a single thought is 10,000 years. Emptiness here, emptiness there, but the infinite universe stands always before your eyes. Infinitely large and infinitely small. No difference, for definitions have vanished and no boundaries are seen. So too with being and non-being. Don't waste time in doubts and arguments that have nothing to do with this. One thing, all things move among and intermingle without distinction. To live in this realization is to be without anxiety about non-perfection. To live in this faith is the road to non-duality, because the non-dual is one with the trusting mind. Words, the way is beyond language, for in it there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today. I think of this poem as the in Nagarjuna's verses of the middle way as the cool logic and warm lyric bookends to Buddha's Four Noble Truths. I think, we need both in our study and practice of the way. And this is a beautiful poem. It's hung in there since the 6th century, so it has a lot of staying power. And of course, this faith is sort of the faith of experience and less than the faith of conceptual belief. And that needs to be, just as this ends up words, we have problems with words. And like the love and hate in here is not the non-discriminating love of universal love, but the love of the secular world of cherish and grasping. So we have to be careful with our words. They trip us up a lot. But then again, it's how we communicate. So we have to use them. So the logic of Nagarjuna, piercing our conceptual constructs to break them apart, and then this wonderful lyric poem doing the same thing from a totally different approach. So we need all the help we can get, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, we don't know much about the third ancestor other than he supposedly had leprosy at one point. I guess he became cured of it. You know anything more about him, Teijo? I'm not sure.
I didn't know leprosy.
I don't think there is much. I looked.
Yeah.
Anyway, my little introductory poem was sort of the relative approach to when I first heard about having no preferences. I thought, well, golly, that's pretty hard, But every time we sit and we're letting go of our thoughts, we're letting go of the dualistic conceptual construct that we make with the world. And so as lofty as this poem is, actually we are experiencing it every time we sit. That is my understanding of Shikantaza, zazen. We're letting go of the subject object. Anybody out there have anything?
I was going to ask, how do you understand that line that says to see all things equally?
Well, back to subject and object. When we're looking at things from that point of view, it's what we call dualistic. So they're separate. And when we drop all of that, everything becomes equal in that ultimate, the absolute side of reality. And it seems like all Zen is playing with this relationship between the relative and absolute, which are just two sides of one coin of reality. And so normal daily life, the relative way we approach the world, of course, things are separate and unique of their own, and we ascribe to them all kinds of different values. But in the absolute experience, all of that drops away. Everything is empty of self and is essentially equal. That's how I think of it and experience it.
Well, you know, in the Tenzo Kyokun Dogen Zenji talks about putting things that belong in high places, and things that belong in low places, in low places. And I've always had a little trouble with that, because I think that the implication is that, you know, just put things in such a way that they can support each other. But it almost sounds like, you know, some things are better than others.
Well, he doesn't say high is better and low is worse. He just, you know, that's the uniqueness of everything. It has a place. Where we go astray is assigning our own personal, you know, hierarchies of good and bad and all that. So, yeah, the big heavy things need to be down low, and the lighter things go up top. It doesn't have anything to do with their worth. It just has to do with their properties. How I look at that.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful apparent contradiction, I guess is what we'd call it, where at one point he says, stop talking and thinking, right in the middle of the poem, which, you know, it just tickled me. I don't think he meant it to be, I don't know how he meant it, but it was wonderful. And then to reflect on how much it took to write this whole poem when he's saying that, you know, it's kind of extra wonderful.
Yeah, it's, when I first got into Zen, I kept hearing, you know, beyond scripture, you know, don't rely on words and, you know, thoughts. And I thought, well, gee, there sure is a lot of writing in Zen to say that. Yes, that's it.
Who translated this, and what book did you find it in? Or
I was afraid you'd ask me that because I forget.
Oh,
there are other translations for sure, and there's also some very beautiful spoken, much better than mine. Let's see, I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah, here's a real nice one. It's on YouTube, Wisdom of the Masters by Samaneri Asara. So you could just Google that and it'll come up. I wasn't familiar with her, but very beautifully read with the Japanese flute in the background. It's quite nice. I was playing it yesterday, and I think that translation was a little different than this one. There's several of them out there.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was a part of the poem about dreams. I can't remember, and I don't know if he was talking about it in terms of actual dreams or kind of the dream like quality of existence. Can you kind of share some of your understanding about that?
What does he say here? Let's see. You talking about this line, if the eye never sleeps, all dreams will naturally cease.
Mhm.
And the next line is the mind makes no discrimination. The 10,000 things are as they are, of single essence. There again, it's about our normal dualistic way of looking at the world, which, that was how we have to look at the world. We'll, we'll run into the door or the window. So that's what that's talking about in that particular instance. I had a cousin who, after a few too many drinks, walked right into his sliding glass door and broke his nose. I don't know if that's a good analogy there or not.
Thank you.
Sure.
I would like to comment on your poem, which I enjoyed very much. It was interesting to say, you do prefer things. You prefer the smell of roses to that of a skunk. And so you do prefer things, but then to say without the skunk, the roses would get boring. What I appreciated about that is that you weren't like lowering roses to the experience of unpleasantness, and you weren't raising the experience of skunk to pleasant. You're still like allowing them to be what they are while you prefer them, but accepting both as and preferring that. Like, you can't escape preferring very easily. I liked that movement at the very end. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I'm glad you saw that. Thank you. Well, that's with our practice, that's how we're able to use this practice to improve our lives, is that we start noticing that when we prefer things, we start seeing it with mindfulness. Because we've been sitting on the cushion and letting thoughts go, we're able to see that relationship and remember the underlying oneness of it at the same time. And that we're much less likely to get in trouble if we do that. And he said in here also, he says, what does he say? If you wish to move in the one way, do not dislike even the world of senses and ideas. He puts that in there. Did I interrupt somebody? Did somebody have something to say?
I started, but I forgot what I was saying, so sorry. No, I know it was in response to something that you said. I was thinking about when we recognize our preferences. I'm always saying that sometimes if you notice your mind is busy when you're doing zazen, that's awakening, And it's sort of like when you notice your preferences to also see, if you can see your preferences is what you see, you can see what's behind them in some way. It's kind of an awareness. It's not like your mind is going, oh, I see what I'm doing, but it's kind of like the preferences all of a sudden you notice that they're an obstacle. And so you kind of drop them. And that what you're talking about, that experience of oneness is just there, And so when we experience that just so many times, it feels like that's a great source of faith, because it becomes something that we don't judge as, well, that wasn't real. I think that experience of oneness is something we can easily call not real because it's not real. Or it's not intellectual.
Can you say something about the role of doubt in our practice?
Doubt? Did you
Yes.
say doubt?
Doubt.
Hmm. I think, in a sense, doubt keeps us honest. So, in a sense that when I get a little too sure of myself, generally that's when I slip up. So it's always nice to have a little doubt in the mix to help keep us humble, I think. And there again, because we're operating mostly, from the relative standpoint, Gary Snyder said a thing that I always like when he first encountered the Bodhisattva vow, saving all beings. He right away saw how that could easily fall into hubris. Oh, I'm going to save everybody! Yay! He just couldn't. He had a hard time coming to grips with that. I mean, how could he save anybody in the first place? And then who wanted him to save them in the second place? And then he realized, oh, if I'm taking this vow to save everybody, I am also simultaneously giving everybody permission to save me. And I thought that was a really wonderful way to look at that. And so I think that's along the same lines here about the doubt. I don't know if that's helpful or not. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of Buddhist writings that tell you not to give in to doubt. And so that's kind of the other side of it, is that, doubt can become an obstacle. So.
Yeah, it works both ways. Yeah, right.
You used an expression, you said, like the faith idea is about the faith of experience, not about, believing in some doctrine or something. Can you expand on that idea, the faith of experience?
Well, the experience here is one that is non-conceptual. Okay, so it's the experience of sitting on the cushion when we're, practicing non-duality, where things are equal. So out of that comes, equanimity and clarity to how things are, more from just being there instead of the idea about what's there. And so ideas, come and go. We'll change our minds about them, all that. So direct experience, where we're not discriminating. Everybody experiences that. I mean, even people who don't have any religion or any spiritual practice at all, they might get it through music or art. you know, some other ways. We all have that. That's what we mean by everyone has Buddha nature. And so that's the kind of faith we're talking about here, and not a belief in an ideology, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I came to Buddhism through art, through poetry and painting. I'd always liked poetry in high school. And I remember when I first went to college, I picked up a poetry book, real slim little thing there while I was in line to get my books. And one of those little carousel things that goes around, and it was a book of haiku, and I had never heard of haiku. And I knew about the beat poets, and although Western canon, but I wasn't really familiar with haiku. And I started reading about it. I was just enchanted by these poems. They just spoke to me, you know, right in the heart. And then I kind of went, well, where's all this coming from? And somewhere it led me to Bodhidharma and led me to Zen, and I was hooked. So that's how I got into this practice, was sort of sideways from that direct experience of beauty.
So what role do you think beauty has in this discussion that we've been having then? What is beauty to you?
Well, it's hard to put into words. That's why I like poetry, is we use metaphor a lot in poetry. And metaphor speaks in a way that is more direct than just linear, you know, essay type, you know, describing something. And Emily Dickinson, as you know, wrote a beautiful, wonderful poem, well known, about truth and beauty. I had it memorized at one point, but I've forgotten it now in my old age. But she's equating those in that poem, truth and beauty. And that really is that again, that equality, that oneness, that connection. And when I look at a Van Gogh, you know, I get it, you know, I can't describe it, I just feel it, you know. And so it's that, and we all have that, and it's wonderful. And, you know, so far we haven't blown up the earth because of that. We keep coming close, but so far, I think that's what saves us, is that innate sense of truth and beauty that we really do all have. So is that about the closest I can get to that? I think, Teijo, you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think in the Chinese and Japanese calligraphy, the calligraphy for heart and mind are the same. I've heard that, and I think that's the truth and beauty there as well. So they, you know, a little different understanding of it from their point of view than the way we have it broken apart.
But the calligraphy itself is actually shaped like a heart, but you're right, it is translated also as mind. But that's always interested me, that it does mean mind, and sometimes it's translated that way, but it looks like a heart.
It does, you're right, it does.
And originally it even looked more like a heart. It was more, everything was kind of connected, and it actually had the shape of a heart.
Fascinating.
So it's almost as if sometimes I think of it as the mind is actually in the heart.
There's something to be said for the ideographic type of language versus what you call ours, actually.
Literal.
I guess, I don't know. Have to take a look at that. But yeah, the whole how writing rose up in different parts of the world in totally different ways. Yeah.
But the thing is, the characters a lot of them are pictures of situations or particular things like the heart and tree, but yet, but it leaves a lot of space for intuition,
Nuance. Yes.
We've been noticing that I've been noticing that Shohaku, when he translates or talks about fascicle of Dogen's writings, it's very what's the word? It's very easy to understand what he means in terms of our lives. He makes it very applicable to our lives, and I've noticed a couple times in his commentaries where he's referring, or in my conversations with him, where he's referring to, I'll ask him about a translation of Katagiri Roshi's, and he kind of scratches his head and said, yeah, I don't exactly know how he comes to that. Maybe it's this or maybe it's this. But Katagiri Roshi had a more esoteric understanding of Dogen's writings, and Shohaku's is a little more practical, like this is what Dogen is talking about, how it actually works in our lives. And it's just kind of an interesting thing and that's what the characters kind of elicit. It's a much broader thing that you can, it's subject to, and Shohaku, he does commentary on things. And if I talk about him about a commentary that he did 15 years ago, he said, oh, I've moved on. But for me, whoa, this is blowing my mind. So I think it gives us the opportunity to expand. And the problem, I think, with Western languages is that they're so specific with their words that even though we may interpret the words a little differently, it doesn't give you that breadth of expanding your mind. That's my observation.
And also, from the Western approach, the words can mean different things as well in the Western world. So where concepts get all involved and then people have their ideologies, a word will mean one thing to one person with one ideology, and that same word will mean something different to another one. So we sometimes that could be a problem, and sometimes it can be an asset. So just depends on the situation and what's going on. But I think originally probably our writing in the deep mist of time probably did evolve out of pictures as well, probably originally. I like when Shohaku does his lectures, how he takes the characters and takes us through the different meanings that are possible, and how, especially in his Dogen essays and talks, how Dogen took that same character and used it in a different way to express something differently. I really appreciate that. It just opens that up quite a bit for
Yeah.
us Westerners. You know, I was talking about this poem and Nagarjuna bookending Buddha, but I think Dogen just encapsulates the whole thing. He was just a master with language. Incredible.
Yes, I asked Katagiri Roshi one time if, I said, I really felt like Zen was influenced by Taoism. And he said, no, Zen is Zen. Zen is the purest form of practice, he says. And I feel in a sense, and especially with Dogen, that Dogen, he refutes almost everything that was kind of part of the Buddhist belief system at that time. And he comes up with, yeah, that's not the way it is. and Shohaku uncovers this, but I think that brings a certain purity to it, and when I was trying to teach Chan Buddhism, I was taking some of these people like Bodhidharma and Queen Nang and Dogen and some of these people that represented kind of shifts in the thinking. And it was, it was really kind of questioning how people got kind of stuck in the belief system. Somebody will come up with an interpretation and everybody says, oh, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And then, somebody like Dogen or Bodhidharma or somebody will come along and say, yeah, let go of that. That's the way it is, open your mind.
Well, that's kind of that role of doubt there. Dogen looks at this and says, I don't know, a little doubt there, being positive and to taking a deeper look at it.
Yeah.
His experience. That's what I love about the Zen tradition. It's based, yes, we're all susceptible to dogma. It's easy, it's the lazy way, but there's also in the Zen tradition of picking up someone else's teachings and slicing and dicing it, and looking at it differently. And
yeah.
Dogen was certainly the master of that.
Woo.
Still scratching my head over a lot of his stuff, man.
And Shohaku too, he said, if I didn't have hundreds of years of commentaries available, I wouldn't understand Dogen. And I thought, how are we ever going to understand Dogen in America when we don't even have those translations available?
Yeah, he's got a leg up.
What?
He's got a leg up.
Yeah, maybe. But then too, just sitting is what Dogen said to do. So,
Yeah.
What you just said too, Daigu, there was like talking about the doubt and then Dogen kind of sitting there and like sitting and having an experience. I feel like there was the faith that you mentioned as well, of kind of letting his direct experience speak and
Exactly. Yeah.
Teijo, your comment about the mind being in the heart. A couple of us were on retreat with this Malaysian nun, this Theravada nun, and one thing I noticed is every time she would say the mind, she talked about the mind, and she would always point to her heart. That really struck something.
Yeah.
You can't help but think in that way when you look at the character and you know that it means mind and heart. That it just all of a sudden it's all the same thing.
The scientists have said they have discovered the ego neuron somewhere up in the frontal cortex. So that's what I think about with mind, is that the ego neurons, the relative mind.
But yeah, Roshi said, our ego is our life force. He said, if we didn't have an ego, we would die.
Yeah, we don't want to get rid of it. We just want to take it for what it is.
Which shelf do we put that on?
Okay, I think we're pretty close now to the 11, so thank you for pinch hitting for me.
Sure. That was fun. Thank you.
We'll give back the merit. May the merit of this practice
May the merit
Merit of this practice
benefit all beings
benefit all
all beings
and bring peace.
and bring peace.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daigu. Daigu means great fool,
Ah.
which means non-discrimination. It's an awesome name.
Yes, I appreciate that name. It's kept me watching myself. That's for sure.